Yo, what's good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is part 1 of What If Deku made a super suit, and I want to say just right off the rack and right off the bat that there is minor spoilers. There are going to be spoilers in this video, or just spoilers kind of like in general for the My Hero Academia manga. So if you don't want to be spoiled like at all, then feel free to click off the video. But now that that warning has been said, at the end of My Hero Academia manga, we also deal with Deku getting a quote-unquote suit of armor, kind of a interpretation of it. And of course, there's been a lot of controversy with the ending of My Hero Academia, which I won't get into here. But this What If will derive the idea of him getting a super suit a little bit earlier. And I'm going to do also a little bit of the things that I would have loved to see Deku do at the beginning of My Hero Academia, and kind of slot this whole super suit thing properly into the story, or at least in my eyes what properly into the story would be. Now with that said, let's get into the what if. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya has a normal childhood, but his normal childhood would consist of getting minorly bullied, which to be honest is kind of normal for quite a few different people probably in the world, and probably for the mass majority of people in the world in general. Now, he would be getting bullied more specifically because he doesn't actually have a quirk. And I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of a messed up thing, especially when you think about the idea of people not having quirks being kind of relatively like common. Like, it's not too rare to not, or to have somebody not have a quirk. I mean, legitimately, I believe, if I'm correct, it's about 20% of the population that don't have a quirk. But he would get massively bullied for this. But during this time, Izuku would be studying hero quirks, studying hero fight styles, and he would even be studying so much more. I mean, Izuku would go through kind of life, or early life, just writing everything down, studying as much as possible, and frankly, all of this would be massively beneficial. All of this would be beneficial to the point that, well, Izuku would actually see kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel for doing the things that he's doing. Now, what I mean by that is, Izuku actually believes that he can be a hero, but he believes that he needs to take some steps in the right direction to actually be the hero he wants to be. And that would include, well, getting strong enough. And this would start with Izuku kind of, well, training, right? He would start with training, you know, normal like push-ups, sit-ups, and all that good stuff. But on top of that, he would think to himself, okay, what else do I have to actually do? Now, he would think to himself that he also needs to probably learn some sort of martial arts or some sort of way to kind of defend himself. But to be honest, that's easier said than done. It's really hard to learn stuff like this. And, well, it's really hard to learn and do really anything to this degree. So he decides that he's going to, you know, continue his studies and continue doing more and more things so that he can learn better ways of approaching the idea of being a hero. This would even lead him down the pathway of actually studying robotics and studying different technology, leading to him actually getting a scholarship of some sorts with a hero agency. And Izuku is extremely intelligent, and that's one thing that we kind of fall off from, to be honest, in My Hero Academia. But in this reality, Izuku continues to build on that knowledge, and then eventually gets a scholarship where he's working with a bunch of different support heroes and also support students even far before UA. And this would be a perfect opportunity for Izuku, a literal perfect one, because Izuku Midoriya would be massively benefiting from learning about the technology and also learning about what he would need to build himself a quote-unquote super suit. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Izuku's not gonna make anything too high-tech, too insane, but he actually does make some sort of exoskeleton that allows him to kind of do certain things that he would never be able to do. No, it does not boost his physical strength. And no, it doesn't do kind of insane superhuman feats, but what it does do is he programs it with almost every single martial arts known to man. Now, of course, just having it programmed with different martial arts doesn't mean he's going to be able to do it. But this would allow him to actually kind of benefit from the super suits or the exoskeleton super suit, just the rhythm, the patterns, and everything. And this allows him to learn a ton of fighting styles in a very quick fashion. And he continues working with these support heroes and support students and support agency all the way up until he's around 15 years old. So at the end of the day, Izuku just utilizes his mind, his brain, and as much of his, possible options as he can throughout this time. Like I said, all the way up until he's 15 years old, he is working with this agency. He's working on this quote-unquote suit of armor, and they even make some prototypes that are actual suits of armor. Like we're talking about, like the padding, maybe metal plating, stuff like that to actually enhance his strength. But to be honest, it's not going amazing. It's kind of awkward. So he does decide to kind of stick with the exo type skeleton prototype, at least just for now. And yes, it does make him pretty vulnerable, but at least at the moment it is massively beneficial, especially for just flat out learning new things and also learning how to defend himself. And soon the last day of middle school would come to the forefront, and he would be hearing from his teacher about this and that, about, hey, like, I know all of you want to be heroes and stuff like that. And Izuku would listen and hope for the best and, all this stuff. And the teacher would end up exposing that him and Bakugo actually are trying to get into UA. And Bakugo immediately berates him, saying that he's useless, that he's unable to do anything. He's just a Deku, and that there's no way he's going to get into UA. There's no chance at all. But Izuku counters it and says, look, I've been working hard. I've been training. I've been working on prototypes. I've been making items and different specialty like things that are going to help me and so on. And everybody laughs at him, saying that he's basically just a support hero. That's what he is. I mean, it's obvious. That's what he should stick to. I mean, didn't he get that scholarship as well for being a support hero? Like, come on, you're useless. You don't have a quirk. You might as well just stay in the lab, and that's it. And you might as well support the real heroes, in which Bakugo would point at himself, saying that he is going to be one of those real heroes. But Izuku ignores it, thinking that this exoskeleton, this armor, these prototypes that he's making, it's that first step into basically going to be a hero. It's that first step that he needs. He's gotten a lot of funding and a lot of scholarships and stuff like that, and these prototypes have, been getting better and better, but at the end of the day, they're not perfect. At the end of the day, they're lacking something. And he knows that, and he knows that that's the case. And eventually this would lead to him leaving his school for the day. And of course, Bakugo would blast his journal, which would absolutely infuriate Izuku, and also tell him to basically jump off the roof of the building, which is a horrible thing for someone like Izuku to hear. Izuku would be kind of defeated. He would head off home, going underneath a bridge, and eventually he would be confronted by the sludge villain. And everything that happens in the normal My Hero Academia sludge villain type of battle would go exactly the same, right? Izuku would be terrified. I mean, yes, he knows martial arts, and yes, he's practiced the movements, and he's practiced, mastering different martial arts and different things like that, but he's still unable to defeat something as absolutely terrifying as the thing that's in front of him. I mean, at the end of the day, he is dealing with a sludge villain, a villain that is made of complete and utter sludge, and a villain that would be resistant to literally all attacks that are going to be sent his way. So what does he do? Well, he's gonna have to try to run, and running, it's not gonna go as well as he would really want it to go. So he would try to run away from the sludge villain, but he would be unable to do so. The sludge villain catching him and then trying to actually take over his body. But luckily enough, Izuku hears, somebody busting out from below the ground, or, coming out from a manhole cover from the sewer. And this Well, this is the number one hero, All Might. All Might would then blast the sludge villain to little pieces, sending Izuku flying. But when Izuku would wake up from being knocked out by All Might, yes, knocked out because he was slammed into the wall, and he would see All Might and freak out and ask for an autograph and all this stuff. I mean, he would want to talk to All Might. At the end of the day, this is his hero. And he would try to ask All Might some questions, but All Might would just jump away. So Izuku grabs onto his leg, and All Might would have to, well, eventually land on a nearby building. And he would ask All Might, is there any chance, is there any way that a quirkless support-like hero could be a true hero? He doesn't want to just support the other heroes. He wants to be on the front lines. He wants to fight. He wants to save people just like him. And All Might, well, he says no. He says that there's a good chance that he'd just fall because of it. That he should stay away from the front lines. That he should help those other heroes in need with whatever tech he can make and whatever ideas he ends up having. That's how you're going to help them. But you're never going to be the hero like he wants to be. That Izuku's never going to be a hero like All Might. He's never going to be able to stand on those front lines, never going to be able to take those blows. But he should try and find his way to be a hero differently. But Izuku would be crushed by this. Hearing this makes him shut down. I mean, at the end of the day, all Izuku wants to do is be like All Might. He's tried everything. He's stepped up his game in terms of technology, in terms of studying, in terms of breaking down and analyzing the quirks of other heroes. He's tried everything. Everything. At least that's what it feels like. But it seems like it's just not enough. It's just not enough. All Might would leave and Izuku would follow as well, leaving soon after All Might. And then eventually, well, Izuku would be walking and he would hear something. Crashes, explosions, and eventually he would see that the sludge villain escaped. The sludge villain has gone out of the bottles that he was placed into, the capture that he was in, and now the sludge villain has someone he knows. And yes, he might treat him like garbage, but someone he does mildly care about. Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo is stuck within the sludge villain, and Izuku looks, and his whole body would run chills, and then out of nowhere would heat up and feel like he has a massive fever. And the nervousness, well, it would fill his body with adrenaline, and without a second thought, Izuku would go dashing in. He would pull out his backpack, and he would immediately slap something on his own back as if he's just attaching something to his back, being that his exoskeleton. This allows him to move just a little tiny bit quicker and also be a little bit tiny bit stronger. But it also allows his own body to basically understand his own movements that he's doing in real time. He believes that this might just help him a little bit, and maybe the martial arts will allow him to fluidly just motion his way to trying saving Bakugo. And immediately he would throw, you know, pencils and staplers and stuff like that at the sludge villain's eyes. And he would actually stagger the sludge villain a little bit. He would grab onto Bakugo and try to pull him out, but he can't. Bakugo is just too far in there. He tries to throw his backpack at the sludge villain's eyes once again, and it lands, but the sludge villain struggles as he grabs the leg of Izuku. Izuku tries to peel his way off and tries to break free, but he can't. Izuku struggles, and he grabs onto Bakugo, and he places his feet within the sludge villain and yanks Bakugo out, pulling him clean out of the sludge villain and kind of throwing him out of harm's way. Izuku looks as he's about to be sucked into the sludge villain entirely, but then out of nowhere, he would hear something. He would hear the sound that sounds so familiar. He would hear the same person that he listened to countless of times, and the same person that he's heard on the TV more than he could possibly imagine. And this was All Might, and he would line up and say, "Detroit Smash." Boom. In one single moment, one foul swoop, the sludge villain smashes into pieces. And well, Izuku knows exactly what this means, that he just overused the power that he has left, and it was all because of him. Now, in Izuku's mind, he just did something bad. He failed, and even the other heroes kind of reassure this, that Izuku did something wrong, and that he shouldn't have done that, and blah 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 and blah, and all this stuff, right? And they're telling him, like, this was a horrible idea. Like, why did you do this? Like, this was not something you should ever do. This is how you get hurt, and this is, all this stuff. And Bakugo would be praised as someone that, is like a hero, and Bakugo this and Bakugo that. But eventually, on a walk home, Izuku would hear something. He would hear All Might. All Might would tell him that he was wrong, that everything that he himself, that All Might said was wrong, that the kid has instincts more than any other hero could possibly imagine. The kid has this thing that he jumps into immediately, would jump into the line of fire without even thinking. That's what a hero does. Protect one person at all costs. He'll sacrifice himself just so one person can survive. That's how a hero is born, and that is truly what a hero is. And Izuku stands there in shock to hear this, and All Might says that he wants him to become a hero. He wants him to become the next, All Might. In which Izuku would be confused, and then All Might would tell him to meet him at Dagobah Beach in the morning. And that's exactly what happens. All Might and Izuku would meet at Dagobah Beach, and then would lead to a conversation about One for All and basically the quirk that he wants to give Izuku. But he tells Izuku that he's gonna have to train, work hard, and get his body ready for the force of One for All. And Izuku nods his head and says he 100% understands that this is something he's been waiting for, something he's been trying to seek after. He's been working on suits of armor. He's been working on different things that would allow him to actually amp his own strength and power up. And All Might hears this and is shocked to hear it, and he asks, what has he been doing? In which Izuku says that they have a clunky, suit of armor that's, to be honest, not very good. And the other one is kind of like a weird exoskeleton, you could call it, but it's not as advanced as you think. It just takes information from the internet or from data that is basically put within it, and it helps the user kind of learn things a little bit quicker. And it has helped Izuku quite a bit, in which All Might is shocked to hear this, and he asks what has he learned, and Izuku tells him that he's actually learned quite a bit of martial arts, and he doesn't know what level he is in a technical sense, but he basically knows quite a bit of martial arts. He knows a good amount of kickboxing, karate, different types of fighting styles like Muay Thai, either leg kick heavy, or punch heavy, maybe boxer or striker heavy. And that's kind of like the idea that he's kind of been going down. And All Might is completely taken back by this and says that this would put him in a very good position, and that this was a great idea for him to approach things with. And if he wanted to, he could probably get real rich off of this whole exoskeleton learning thing, even though it is kind of like a prototype, but it is definitely ever evolving so that he can learn more and more. But he tells All Might that he has no interest in being a millionaire, no interest in getting all this money. He wants to be the best hero he possibly can be, and that was the whole point of him making this so-called super suit, in which All Might tells him, stick with the simple stuff, the stuff that's going to help him learn, the stuff that's going to help him develop. Stick with that and continue to develop it more and more, so that maybe it's going to benefit him even more in the future. Stick with that and you'll definitely see results. In which Izuku nods his head, and they begin training over the course of 10 months. Now, this doesn't take 10 months for him to actually train. It takes around 8, because Izuku actually has been training for quite a bit. He's been doing martial arts, he's been doing his normal training regimens and stuff like that. So it doesn't actually take 10 months for him to clean Dagobah Beach. So he's able to actually have 2 months of utilizing something known as One for All. he's able to utilize the quirk of All Might, and he's, well, you know, after he eats the hair of All Might, he eats the hair, and then now he can utilize One for All. And utilizing One for All, I'm not gonna lie, is a struggle for Izuku. And I'm not gonna lie, All Might also doesn't help at all, because All Might's not the best teacher. Actually, furthest thing from it, he's kind of trash at teaching. Now, he does help from time to time, and Izuku utilizes his martial arts technique and also what he knows from, or what he's learned throughout this time, and he actually finds a way to utilize One for All without actually shattering his bones. I mean, martial arts has taught him quite a bit, and he's been from dojo to dojo every so often, and it has taught him, you know, mindfulness and control and utilizing relaxation in a combat setting, but not being too relaxed, because you don't want to obviously get your head taken off. But he understands different developments and different ways of utilizing martial arts, if that's from karate to judo to jujitsu, whatever you could think of. And a lot of those things take different approaches, and Izuku takes the approach of trying to utilize One for All at a minor level, right? Try to pull back on it. So he actually utilizes One for All at 5%. And it does take, literally, no joke, it takes 2 months for him to kind of get a grasp on it. But it also allows him to develop his exosuit, to understand what works and doesn't work with One for All. So now he's kind of developing this exo type of suit that eventually would turn into his actual hero outfit, being kind of like a prototype too. But it actually helps him be more resistant when utilizing One for All. It's as if it reduces the strain on his body and full body when actually utilizing it. Now, this does help massively, because now after a 2-month period, instead of being able to only use 5%, he's actually able to use 15%. And this massively helps Izuku, because this is a lot more power that he can actually utilize in a very controlled manner. Now, after all this training, after the 10 months are all over, he would finally lead himself to the actual final exams, or the actual, the actual UA entrance exams is what I meant. Now, the UA entrance exams is a pretty basic thing. Izuku is very smart, and he studied up on quite a bit of things, so he's going to do pretty well on the written portion. Now, the practical is a little bit different. He is very, very quick and very, very fast, so he's able to destroy robot after robot, but he's kind of doing it in a very controlled and calculated way. He's not trying to blitz and destroy robots as quick as possible and destroy everything, blah, 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 right? He believes that he needs to stay controlled. Everything is a lesson, and everything is development, especially for the suit that he's currently utilizing, being that of the prototype 2. It's basically like his normal, like a normal hero outfit, but with a kind of like exo type of skeleton threaded through it that continues to learn more and more. And eventually he hopes that that exoskeleton like kind of suit of armor becomes even more developed to a completely different, insane degree. But obviously for now, that's not the case. Now he continues to destroy robot after robot after robot, and he, you know, racks up a good amount of points, and he actually does quite well. That's until he sees the 0-point robot actually trying to, well, obliterate and stomp on a girl that is trapped under some rubble. Luckily, Izuku is able to be fast enough to brush off all the rubble, pick her up, and just run away. He doesn't want to take on this giant robot, knowing that he would have to crank up his One for All the way to 100%, but he knows that this is probably the worst idea possible, and there's a good chance he would be just shattering a bunch of limbs, like for no reason. So he just takes her away and puts her into a safe spot, in which she thanks him. And Ochaku Uraka would ask about him and ask stuff about him, but Izuku would be so enthralled about what he's been able to do, what he's capable of, and how well his exoskeleton-like suit has been actually working, that he doesn't even think about it. This suit of armor, or this kind of super suit that he's created, has just excelled his expectations, and he just wants to get back to analyze the data that he got from actually this UA entrance exam. Now, there's obviously high likelihood that he passes this exam. I mean, at the end of the day, when he would get his letter, he would be told that he did. Now, initially, it was actually said that he was going to be more of like a middle of the pack type of guy, or in terms of like a middle of the pack type of hero student. But actually, he tipped the scales just a little bit. And yes, it seems as if Izuku actually landed at number 3 in the charts, in which Izuku is completely psyched by this. I mean, oh, this is fantastic. I mean, he knows that he, probably just got enough robots to like make sure that he passed, but he didn't want to also overdo it, not knowing if it was going to add extra strain because of longevity with One for All. But it seems like he actually got 3rd place in the entirety of the exam because of the save on Ochako Uraraka, which this makes him extremely happy, and he's not even thinking about the idea of who got first, because, well, Katsuki Bakugo got first. Now, Izuku doesn't know this, and he doesn't really worry about this, but this would lead him to the first day of UA. Now, when he would get there, Bakugo would not be happy at all, and Izuku would ask what place he actually ended up getting, and Bakugo says he is the number 1 student. And I mean, do you really think otherwise? Like, there's no way that he wasn't gonna be the number 1 student. In which Izuku nods his head and says, hey, I mean, we've always known Kachan was amazing, right? Like, blah, blah, blah. And Izuku would eventually say that, yeah, he placed number 3, in which Bakugo would be livid at. How the hell did you place number 3 with your stupid little gadgets? I mean, you should be in the support course, in which everyone is shocked to hear this, in which Izuku does say that he's made technology, and he is, definitely support heavy, and he actually got permission to work with the support heroes a little bit more, but still, he is in the hero course, and that's exactly what he's going to lean toward more than support hero itself. Everybody is psyched to hear this. I mean, this is pretty damn cool. The fact is, we are dealing with somebody who's a hero or in the hero course, but also has the potential of being a high-level support course student as well. A lot of the students are pretty big fans of this and actually immediately greet themselves to Izuku, telling him like, wow, you're amazing, and we saw what you did in the UA entrance exam. And Ochako even tries to walk up to him and tell him like, oh, thank you again, and blah, 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 all that stuff. And eventually, well, Aizawa would tell them all to shut their mouths, because they, of course, have a quirk assessment to get to. And that quirk assessment would be a pretty basic one. I'm not going to lie, Izuku is not going to be excelling at the ball throw like he did initially, because Izuku did 100% of One for All with 1 finger. And yes, don't get me wrong, using a whole arm would be beneficial, but he's only going to be utilizing it around 10 to 15%, depending if he's actually allowed to have his exoskeleton suit on him. So there's a good chance that he actually has to restrict himself a little bit, but he's still able to launch the ball pretty damn far, but Bakugo would definitely beat him. But in terms of the other type of things he has to do, in terms of the grip strength test, he does pretty damn good on. The side steps, the speed test, all of those things he is pretty high level on, right? He's maybe not number 1, but he's definitely in the top 5 to top 7. So he's easily able to kind of brush his way through the quirk assessment test. And of course, this was important because Aizawa did tell them like, hey, if you don't actually pass this exam or pass this test and you're the last place person, then you are out of here. Like, you are expelled. And everybody is freaking out about this, but eventually he would have revealed that, it was a hoax, but, he basically shows that it's a hoax later on when the person, being that of Hagakure, actually fails and then comes back the very next day. So technically, it wasn't anything too crazy. And technically, we weren't actually dealing with a, actual full-on expulsion of the sorts. Now, after that first day, the quirk, that quirk assessment test, we are dealing with a Bakugo who's a little bit infuriated about how good Izuku is doing. I mean, he's a quirkless nerd. He should not be doing anything. But Izuku tells him that he actually has a quirk now. He must have been just a late bloomer, and that whole sludge villain incident actually probably did the whole awakening process for him. But Bakugo says that he better wish that they never go head to head, because if they do, he's going to end him. He's going to end his life on the spot. And as Bakugo says this, All Might would come rushing in, saying, "I am here." And as he says this, he tells them all that they're going to have a bit of a training session and they should all get ready and get on their super outfits or superhero outfits. Izuku looks at his own super suit, seeing that there is even more renovations. There's a little tag on it that has a sign or sign name of Mei Hatsume, someone who Izuku actually knows a little bit about. Didn't actually work with her very much because, wasn't just in the same bracket as her, but did hear about her. And there's a little tag that says that she did, some tweaks to the suit, made it a little bit more comfortable. And the whole idea of this exoskeleton embedded in this suit is a brilliant idea. And that she wants to know more about it ASAP to basically come by, and she wants to know more about this whole suit thing from him specifically. So Izuku, he'll take any upgrade he can get, putting on the suit, and I'm not gonna lie, the dude would look very dapper. It would be like an enhanced version of his, I would say later on suit, more like a, not his like first, horrible looking suit that his mother made, but is more like, modernized suit, but it's more enhanced. You can see that a little bit of like energy is flowing through it. So maybe like similar to the end of manga version of the My Hero Academia suits that he wears, but more like a dumbed down version of it, not as like super techy or whatever. So it's more of a dumbed down version of that one, but definitely a little bit more techy than the original. Now, he would put it on and feel good. Like, he would feel really, really good, and he would be excited to what All Might is about to show them and about to do. And obviously this would lead them into the training session of heroes versus villains, and this would stack him against Bakugo. And we already know what's going to happen when Bakugo and Izuku go head to head. Bakugo has already threatened to take his life, so Izuku is not taking anything for granted here. So after 5 minutes of planning, him and Ochaku Uraraka will face off with Bakugo and Tenya Ida. But in all honesty, I could easily say that Bakugo is in for a very rude awakening, because Izuku has been training. He's been building up, and he is ready. So heroes versus villains, Bakugo versus Izuku is about to begin. But that is going to have to wait until part 2 of What If Deku Made a Super Suit. Izuku Midoriya is about to take on Katsuki Bakugo for the first time in a long time. Izuku has always been bullied by Bakugo. And when I mean bullied, I mean bullied. So finally he would get his chance to go head to head with Bakugo, and Bakugo is going to see exactly why Izuku did not only so good in the UA entrance exam, but also so good in just all of these other tests that they've actually done as well. He'll finally get the chance to see what Izuku is made of and see what this late bloomer is truly all about. So Izuku and Ochaku Uraraka would plan out a kind of plan of attack, and their plan of attack would be pretty damn decent, because Izuku, being that he has stemmed from a support course to a large extent, he also is now able to kind of scheme and make plans like 10 times better. He's able to kind of set up a plan where he basically is going to fight Bakugo, but they will set up a trap for Bakugo, you could even say. Now, Izuku doesn't know personally if he's going to be able to just defeat Bakugo. That's one thing that Izuku kind of is iffy on, because he flat out doesn't know, and the only way you would know is through battle experience. But soon, when they would enter the building and go to search for the bomb, he would realize that this fight is nowhere near as close as he thought it was going to be. Because when Bakugo would come spiraling down, he would be coming down in a complete fit of rage, and also just a pursuit of hurting Izuku. And when you do that, and when you are reckless, what normally tends to happen is you get hurt. And Well, let's just say that's exactly what happens to Bakugo, because Izuku would look basically immediately at Bakugo, prepare himself, and when Bakugo would throw an explosion, basically imitating an overhand, Izuku would grab his arm, slam him to the ground, pin him to the ground, and basically put him in an armbar, immediately putting him in an armbar and telling Bakugo that he needs to tap out now, as he goes to grab the capture tape and he wraps Bakugo partially in the capture tape, but Bakugo refuses to get up. He refuses to give up, And when Bakugo tries to basically break free, well, Izuku, snaps the arm. Izuku basically told him to give up right now, and Bakugo himself can feel his arm basically stretched out. So it's not like he's just some, ignorant person that would basically not know that his arm is in danger here. But he would allow his rage to basically overwhelm him to the point that Izuku would have no choice. He would snap his arm and then basically cover him in capture tape, and he would say, well, sorry about that. I mean, seriously, I told you to just tap out. As he would run off and immediately go upstairs, finding actually Tenya Ida and Ochaku Uraka, and through a kind of like a plan of they're both making, they're able to, for the most part, go in and defeat Tenya and just touch the bomb pretty quickly. Now, let's just say when they go back to All Might does say that they should probably try to avoid snapping limbs and or hurting a villain extremely badly, but Bakugo did also refuse to tap out and refuse to kind of give up, quote unquote. And a lot of villains, well, they won't give up. They will keep on trying and they will keep on pushing forward. So, this is gonna happen from time to time, and this is definitely something that could for sure occur, in which, of course, All Might tells Bakugo to go to Recovery Girl ASAP because they got to get his arm fixed up, and it could take maybe a little bit of time for him to actually fully recover all that strength in his arm. Izuku would kind of shrug this off though, and All Might would even say that he did what he had to do, and frankly there's not enough heroes out there that are going to utilize kind of martial arts in the way that he's actually utilizing it, in which Izuku even kind of defends the other heroes, saying that he basically had a robot or an exosuit of some sorts that would allow him to quickly learn these techniques. But of course, All Might would tell him to never put down his own accomplishments, that he did a lot, and there's a reason why he's able to do the things he's doing now, and that's because of the accomplishments that he's been able to make. In which Izuku would shrug and he would nod his head, thanking All Might, of course, and he would watch the rest of the fights and the rest of the kind of training sessions, watching all of his classmates kind of do their own thing, right? Just do their own thing and stuff like that. Now, this would lead them in the following day or so to be on the right path to actually training with something known as rescue training, and also going to something known as the USJ. Now, the USJ is made for rescue training and is a big portion of trying to be a hero. Rescue training is extremely important, so they want to make sure that the students have this down packed. At the end of the day, you have to know how to utilize rescue training. You have to be able to utilize rescue training for the most part, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do right here and right now when they all head on a bus to the USJ. They would all head over to the USJ, and this is where the rescue training is supposed to begin. But actually, it starts kind of crumbling all around them. And what I mean by that is the USJ would be full of villains, portals opening, villains pouring out of them, and immediately the students would be transported elsewhere, and that would include Izuku. Izuku would be sent to a large body of water, getting dunked in entirely, and eventually leading to him getting attacked by these kind of weird fish-like creatures that are, well, basically men with weird quirks. Now, he would get pulled out by Asui, and Izuku would find out a way for them to actually cross the giant lake pretty easily by utilizing One for All at around 15% because of his exosuit. but he is able to kind of approach 20 to 25 depending on the circumstance. Now, he would launch himself and also Asui, including Mineta as well, and they would head over toward where Aizawa is. Izuku would help Asui and Mineta get to safety, and this would lead to Izuku actually confronting some of the villains, fighting alongside Aizawa, and he would easily be able to keep up, and he's on par, if not maybe even a little bit better in terms of a technical striker and as a technical like martial artist compared to Aizawa. But Aizawa does have a lot more experience, so they kind of go hand in hand. They would defeat all the minor villains, but the last three would be the big bad bosses of those villains. This would lead to Shigaraki sending the Nomu toward Izuku and the rest of the people that are there, or the rest of the students that are there. Izuku would brace for impact as he would get punched by the Nomu, sending him flying. Izuku would brace himself, but it would hurt like all hell. The only reason why he's able to actually tank the hit is because of One For All and also his exoskeleton suit that is giving him a little bit more durability. But going head to head with this Nomu, well, there is no question Izuku cannot do this. This is definitely not something that he should approach, especially not lightly. And he tells Aizawa that they need to stall this thing out and hope that All Might would come and basically could be at the forefront of this battle. But right now, they have no choice right now in terms of fighting the Nomu. They try their best to kind of stall him out, and luckily they're able to do so. But as they're stalling him out, it seems that Shigaraki is getting impatient, and Shigaraki lunges toward both Aizawa and Izuku. But Aizawa would activate his quirk on Shigaraki, leading to Izuku kicking Shigaraki straight to the ground and landing a clean flush blow that would honestly hurt Shigaraki extremely bad. Izuku would look toward Aizawa once again as the Nomu charges at him, about to punch him in the face. But Izuku would be able to kick the Nomu's arm just enough where it winces right by Aizawa and barely misses. Izuku would look up as he would get hit with a punch from the Nomu clean in the jaw, as he would get sent flying backwards and he would slam into a wall, almost unconscious entirely. Izuku would struggle to his feet, but Aizawa would tell him to stay down, that there is no way that he can keep up with this and he needs to stay on the ground and just be safe. Izuku nods his head as he takes one knee, and as he takes the knee, someone would bust through the doors, being that of All Might. All Might would bust through the doors and tell everybody that he is here and to not worry. He would fight with the Nomu, and with basically an Aizawa who is a lot more healthy at this point, he would be able to subdue Shigaraki if need be. But Shigaraki would try and fight Aizawa, but with his quirk going on, he's unable to actually affect Aizawa at all. And Aizawa gets the better of Shigaraki by a long shot. He begins to beat on Shigaraki, and Kurogiri even tries to come in and try to save him, but Bakugo would come out of nowhere, blasting him with an explosion, and also Todoroki would cover him in ice, unable to move and unable to utilize his warping quirk or his portal quirk. It seems like All Might would then finish off the Nomu with the help of some other students. That would include Todoroki and everyone else. And as Shigaraki would realize that Aizawa's basically quirk canceling quirk would be running out, it seems as if he's about to touch Aizawa directly on the face. But with a last gasp of air, Izuku would jump into action immediately, utilizing partly autopilot of his exoskeleton suit, as he would dive towards Shigaraki, cracking his arm directly on the ground and pinning it entirely. Shigaraki goes to try and grab Izuku's face, but Izuku would weave the grab just slightly enough where he would be able to wrap his arms together and basically subdue his arms and his hands entirely. And Izuku would put him into basically a kind of a weird submission that would allow them to kind of restrict him entirely, so much so that they almost get him in cuffs. But as they try to get him in cuffs, a portal would open up, dragging Shigaraki within, and Aizawa would have to grab Izuku and yank him out of the portal before he would fall through. Kurogiri would get away as well, leaving the Nomu behind, who is completely dormant but completely out of commission as well. Izuku would sigh in relief and immediately just pass out. Izuku would be out cold, and when he would wake up, a lot of people would be very, very concerned about if he's able to kind of push forward on some of these things that he needs to do. And with the sports festival soon arising, especially after everything that happened, everyone questions if he's going to be able to participate in the sports festival. But Izuku, well, let's just say he decides that he wants to push himself and wants to do that, but it seems like Recovery Girl tells him that, well, brain trauma is one hell of a thing and that he's unable to participate. He needs at least a couple more days to rest, and then he might be able to get back to training. But with brain trauma, it's extremely difficult for her to utilize her quirk because he needs to sleep it off. And right now, he can't go to sleep the way he needs to, and he can't rest the way he needs to as well. So he tells Izuku, or she tells Izuku, that he needs to take a bit of a break, and that missing the UA Sports Festival, well, it's no big deal. That he's going to be able to have 2 more years of it, as long as he's able to stay healthy and ready to go. So Izuku, well, he would be locked up and basically unable to leave. So he makes a deal with the support course and also a deal with Recovery Girl to at least allow him to work on some gadgets on his off time, and he would get a certain amount of rest, and he would promise to do so. And he would tamper and tinker with his suit more and more, trying to help him and trying to give him even more enhanced abilities. And as he's doing this, well, Mei Hatsume would also work with him a little bit before the UA Sports Festival would eventually begin after a couple more days. But overall, Izuku would continue to work with his suit and continue to kind of prepare for whatever's to come. And he tries to make himself more durable. He tries to give his suit even more aspects that would allow him to basically utilize One For All at a higher level, but also utilize maybe any other techniques that are soon to come. Maybe to enhance his striking ability in terms of like kickboxing and stuff like that, or maybe even enhance his jujitsu skills that he loves using, at least in close range combat. Now, these are all things that he's been thinking about, but while he's tinkering, he is watching the sports festival and is kind of just taken back by everyone's abilities, but also extremely disappointed that he's unable to be participating. But he would get a pep in his step a little bit more when he would get information from All Might that he actually has his former teacher wanting to train him. So after the UA Sports Festival is all said and done and many things, are fulfilled, Izuku would go on to actually take on an internship with Gran Torino. And this is where his new training and his training of One For All goes to a totally different level, because Gran Torino can teach him how to utilize One For All, well, at least in increments, perfectly to a large extent. And on top of that, he's able to basically remind Izuku that he should never rely on the technology that he creates. Yes, utilize it to its best of its ability, make him the best hero possible, but you have to train your body as well. You have to train without it, work without it, and that's what he wants him to do. In which Izuku would do just that. He would tell him that for the next like 3 to 4 days, that's all he would do. Train without it, work without it, and all of the above. And he would get a large grasp on One For All. Like, so much so that he's extremely proficient in utilizing One For All, being able to utilize 30% even without the suit of armor, accelerating his training to a point that he never thought he would get to. And on top of that, if he utilizes the more advanced version that him and Mei Hatsume have been creating with the exoskeleton like suits, he can now use 50% of One For All, giving him an amp and power that seems even comparable to someone like All Might, in which Gran Torino still tells him try his best to, especially in training, to not use the suit. Maybe split your training up, utilize the suit for a little bit, maybe 10% of the training, but the other 90% needs to be just complete hard work. The training needs to feel like you're hurting, you're in pain and stuff like that. Yes, the suit makes things easier, but the suit should only enhance, not kind of prop you up or make it be some sort of default or some crutch that he has to utilize and rely on entirely. In which Izuku nods and honestly completely agrees with this. And eventually Izuku would go out to go on a patrol in Hosu City with Gran Torino, and everything would go to basically haywire and go to shit really fast, because Izuku would watch as Nomus would come around, villains would begin fighting, and so on and so forth, everybody brawling and fighting. And one thing that is changed in this scenario is that he doesn't know about Tenya Ida. He doesn't know what's happening or currently occurring. So when he would come across an alleyway, he would come across that alleyway with Gran Torino, he would look down the alleyway and he would see somebody. He would see Stain with a sword in the back of Tenya Ida. Immediately, Gran Torino tells him to stay back, but Izuku tells him to not be foolish. That yes, he understands that he's a student, but he knows the strength that he holds, and he knows the capabilities that he has, that they need to fight together. They've been working together these last 3 to 4 days, and he knows that he can be comparable with Gran Torino's fight style. They can fight together without clashing. Izuku would pull something out of his bag, and Gran Torino would see that it's the exoskeleton suit, or basically his super suit, and he would tell him that he was supposed to leave that back. But Izuku would tell him that he needed to bring it just for in case of emergencies, that this right here is not training. This is life or death. He would slap it on his back as it would expand, and it would basically kind of create his actual hero suit. Lights would glow, and lightning would kind of spark off of it just a little bit, and Gran Torino would ask if he really had made that many advancements with that suit, in which Izuku would nod and tell him that it seems like it's time to fight, in which they would both go head to head with the hero killer. And the hero killer, don't get me wrong, is extremely comparable. I mean, his fight style, his training, he's like an assassin, right? But Izuku is able to utilize something along the lines of 50% of One for All, and with Gran Torino's help, they're able to go head to head with the hero killer in sync, and also outclass him in kind of like a martial arts term. Yes, I don't think Izuku is on the same level in martial arts maybe or swordsmanship as the hero killer, but he knows enough to where he's able to go head to head with the hero killer, and also with the help of Gran Torino and the speed that Gran Torino maintains, they're able to basically put Stain on the back foot and absolutely beat the villain down. So much so that eventually the hero killer would just run out of steam and would fall short, with help eventually coming, grabbing Tenya and bringing him off for an emergency surgery in hopes of saving him. Izuku would kind of look at Gran Torino and nod and shake his hand and tell him that he's one hell of a teacher, probably way better than All Might, as they would both laugh just a little bit. And Gran Torino would get in a little bit of trouble, but he would say that he would basically tell them that the kid was fully prepared to do exactly this. And well, at the end of the day, Gran Torino gave him his kind of like his go ahead to help him out. So if anybody should take the blame, it's definitely him or Gran Torino himself. In which Gran Torino wouldn't get in trouble nowhere near as much because he was there and he was helping Izuku. So he's not gonna get in too much trouble for this, but he's gonna get in a little bit of trouble. But when everybody else would actually be forced to go back to UA, Izuku would continue working with Mei Hatsume, basically creating more and more stuff in terms of support, and Mei even starts working on different hero-like suits, and she begins to work on basically different super suits that maybe would be for somebody a little bit different and of the mindset of Izuku Midoriya. Izuku's mindset was a lot different than anybody else's could possibly imagine in terms of learning and also studying up on techniques and different hero styles, different martial arts styles, and so on. So other people, they might not think like this. So she wants to create a super suit, maybe even something for herself in the near future, that if she's needed in the feat of battle, she can do just that. So Izuku helps her along the way, but eventually as the final exams would be approaching, well, they would get the news that Tenya Ida, well, he didn't make it. unfortunately Tenya Ida would be gone, and Aizawa would tell them that this right here is the harsh reality of being a hero. Now, if anybody has an issue with it, they should bow out now. There's no point in them sticking around and trying to be a hero if they don't understand the consequences to your actions, or even the consequences to the villain's actions, because that right there is the reality of the work they are in. They need to understand that there are consequences, and they need to understand that people will go away and will be gone forever if they don't properly do their job. And that right there is the harsh reality. And everybody sits stern, but they make sure to keep their game faces on, as the final exam for them leading to the forest training camp is going to begin very soon. They all study up for their written portions with more passion than they've ever had before, trying to set off to basically show everybody what kind of heroes they are and carry on the basically the legacy of the Ida family, with obviously the older brother being put in a wheelchair and now the younger brother passed on to a different life. So they want to make sure that they can continue to push this legacy of the Ida family, and they're going to make sure to be the best heroes they possibly can be. Izuku continues to work with support and also the hero course, training, studying, and working on his suits. And as he does this, and as he continues to do this, he continues to get ready for his final exam. But what he doesn't know is that the practical final exam would be something far different than he could possibly imagine. Because when he would go up there and he would be prepared, well, he would have never thought that he would be going head to head with All Might. But unlike everybody else, he doesn't have a partner. It's one-on-one. The student of All Might versus the symbol of peace, All Might himself. Izuku Midoriya would have his backpack on, and as he has his backpack on, he would basically kind of like pull a cord, and as he pulls a cord, his hero suit would expand and basically cover his entire body. And All Might would immediately tell him that it looks pretty cool, but I wonder how good it really is, because you are taking on me. In which Izuku would nod his head and say that he's going to give it his all, and he's going to show him that there's a new era in heroes coming very, very soon. All Might nods and says that he doesn't expect anything less, but one more tidbit, that he won't be wearing any weights. All Might would walk away as everybody is in complete shock. Can Izuku really go head to head with All Might when he's not holding back? Will the suit that he's wearing, and also will the power that he's gained throughout this time, really hold up against someone like All Might, his teacher, his idol, the number one hero? Can he really stand up to someone like that? Well, you're gonna have to find out in part 3 of What If Deku Made a Super Suit.
Izuku Midoriya versus All Might is about to begin. The student versus the master. The student versus the teacher. They're about to go head to head, but let's see how strong Izuku truly is and what this truly means for the state of what this hero world is eventually going to be. Now, for starters, the fight starts off pretty basic. All Might sending punches through the air, the wind blast type of punches through the air, and then eventually Izuku would reach where All Might is. Izuku would be utilizing around 50 to maybe even 60% of One For All because of his suit, and he would basically begin clashing with All Might. But as he's clashing with All Might, let's just say the integrity and durability of his exoskeleton suit is definitely put into play, because the durability of it, yes, it's been tested on multiple occasions, and yes, they continue to basically evolve it more and more, but the durability of it, it's not quite there. It's not perfect, it's not like horrible, but we are dealing with someone like All Might, so it does begin to kind of show signs of kind of breaking down or cracking and stuff like that. But even though that this is happening, Izuku finds a way to basically close the distance on All Might, and once he gets into hand-to-hand combat range, he actually realizes how strong he truly is. Because when he starts actually fighting All Might, it's obvious that in technicality, or in a more technical sense, he's definitely better at fighting than All Might. His hand-to-hand combat skills way better than All Might's. His martial arts experience way better than All Might's. And yes, All Might has raw power, but All Might doesn't really have actual striking ability. And since Izuku is actually using upwards of 50% of One For All, he's actually able to keep up, if not put All Might on the back foot. Everybody's in complete shock that Izuku is able to do this. I mean, this is All Might they're talking about. How is Izuku able to put All Might on the back foot? Izuku would overwhelm him with combinations and basically kind of shoot out kind of like shorter strikes than All Might would. All Might obviously would be throwing punches that are, you know, more long, more labored than anything else, and would be made just for straight power. But Izuku on the other hand is definitely not doing this. Izuku is very short, very concise, very technical, and he continues to kind of like overwhelm All Might with all of this. And he even throws shots to the body, throws shots to the head, throws some leg kicks. And he continues to do this over and over again, kind of picking at weak points that All Might has. Not the actual weak point in terms of, you know, the horrible wound on him, because he's not going to do that to All Might. That would be kind of messed up. But more like the weak points on someone's body. So like different parts of the muscles and stuff like that. Izuku kind of pinpoints them and kind of strikes toward them the best of his capabilities. And it's obvious that his exosuit or his super suit has helped him quite a bit in terms of evolving One For All, but also expanding on his fight style, because he's actually utilizing some of the fight style that, well, Shota Aizawa also utilizes as well, other known as Eraserhead, in which All Might would be shocked to see this, because it seems like he's imitating parts of Aizawa, but also adding a little bit of flair with what he normally fights like as well, which is crazy, which it seems to be insane. And on top of that, he even mixes in some strikes and some movement that he actually got from the Hero Killer, which is definitely beneficial. Now, All Might is very experienced, he's very durable, at least at the moment, and he's able to kind of withstand the flurry. And with time kind of chunking down, Izuku does realize that he probably doesn't want to continue fighting longer and longer. He needs to escape, because yes, they could continue fighting and maybe he would eventually win, but there's a better chance of him just running through the gates after he knocks All Might down again than him drawing out a fight that could potentially make him lose because he takes too long, right? So he decides that he's going to do just that. He runs off after knocking down All Might and subduing him, at least briefly, and then he would just win by escaping, quote unquote. Now, this is a pretty basic way to win, but I think he's basically gotten the point across that he's definitely on the same level as All Might. Like, he is up there in terms of strength, but now he knows that his exosuit or his super suit will continue to need upgrades so that he can actually, you know, make it more durable and stuff like that, which Mei Hatsume would be, and him would be working on that all the way up until the forest training camp. Now, he would finally get a slightly more durable version of the suit headed off to the forest training camp, but of course, you know, he's not going to utilize the suit a ton while he's over there, because he wants to get as much out of the training as he possibly can. And that's exactly what happens, right? He gets there, you know, he gets kicked in the, you know, the nether regions by Koda, and then he kind of goes on to basically train extremely hard with just learning more about One For All and doing all of these things. Izuku has progressed massively in this time period, and he's done it because of, well, martial arts, because of the suit, and because of so much more. And as he's progressing, Aizawa believes that he's gotten such a good grasp on everything he's doing that he should actually probably learn to train with something different, in which Aizawa brought an actual replica of the scarf that he utilizes, telling Izuku that he should utilize this and utilize this scarf and it could honestly complement him massively to his own fight style. And that's exactly what Izuku does for the next couple of days, tries to learn how to utilize it, but it is extremely difficult. Even with imitation of Aizawa, it's extremely hard, especially because he's not really utilizing his super suit very much during this time. But eventually, the villains or the League of Villains would invade the forest training camp. And when they would invade and he would run off to go help Koda or make sure that he's okay, he would arrive and he would have to go head to head with someone by the name of Muscular. Muscular is extremely powerful, and Izuku realizes that he needs to put on his suit ASAP. Doing so, he begins to fight Muscular, and they fight pretty damn evenly, at least for the most part. Izuku would have to kind of strain his body, cranking up One For All, but he's more controlled in this regard. He's still able to put flurries and punches on Muscular and target weak points very similar to the way he did All Might, and eventually leading to him actually trying to utilize Aizawa's scarf. But as he tries to utilize it, he actually can't. And this allows and gives an opening for Muscular to get even stronger and evolve his muscular form. Now, Izuku is utilizing quite a bit of One For All, even though he's straining his body, going upwards of 65 to 70%, and he's definitely able to put Muscular on the back foot, but he does realize that utilizing kind of short and like not putting extreme amounts of power on his punches, in one go, is definitely restricting his combat power in terms of taking out someone like Muscular, at least instantly, just because he's a bigger person and kind of more like, bigger in stature and stuff like that. So he makes sure to look for his opening and tries to land a flush one blow to knock him out. As he does so, he would try and wrap his scarf around Muscular to land that blow, but as he reaches out, he could feel something within him that was completely different. The scarf did not react, not even 1 little inch, and eventually these tendrils, or something that was these black tendrils, would shoot out of Izuku's hands or his arms and eventually wrap around Muscular as he would land one blow to the jaw, knocking him out cold. Izuku would be shocked to see this, thinking to himself, how the hell does this make sense? Like, how was he able to do this? This doesn't make sense at all. But a realization would come over him, thinking that he did learn that One For All is a combination of just countless passing of different quirks, and he thinks that he might have just awakened one of the quirks that lay dormant within One For All, being that we know as Black Whip. Black Whip has been awakened, and Izuku is able to subdue Muscular entirely and take Koda to safety. But before you know it, before anybody could even react to it, well, it seems like Katsuki Bakugo would be taken away, in which would completely shock Izuku, but it would make him realize that all of this is coming to a head quicker than he could possibly imagine. Eventually, the forest training camp is cut short, everybody is sent to the hospitals, and Izuku continues to speak with Aizawa, trying to basically learn more about the situation and what they're prepared to do. Aizawa refuses to tell him really anything, but Izuku tells him that he's ready to go now, that he is fully prepared to take on whatever's to come, and that All Might need his help, in which Aizawa tells him that he can't do that, he can't allow him to do so, and he needs to just stay kind of out of the way for now, in which Izuku would nod his head and basically go off, but a bunch of them, including people like Hiroshima, and other students like Momo and stuff like that, would decide that they're going to take it upon themselves to actually find where Bakugo is. And eventually they are able to do that, but of course the heroes would already lay siege to the area, and on top of this would lead to the battle between All For One and All Might. Izuku would immediately strap his backpack in, pulling it tighter to his body, and as he pulls a string, his suit would come over him, and everybody would ask, what the hell does he think he's doing? That this is a horrible idea, that they should just try to rescue Bakugo. That's it. Rescue Bakugo. And in which Izuku says that he knows that this is probably a bad idea, And as he says this, he would be tightening his suit just a little bit and shaking his arms out. And he would tell them that even though it's a bad idea, a true hero will go in without even thinking. And frankly, Izuku says that he's already been thinking way too much. Izuku would send Black Whip toward Bakugo as he would sling Bakugo toward the sky. As he slings him toward the sky, Bakugo would realize what just happened. Seeing the others nearby, Bakugo would go toward them and basically escape from Shigaraki and most of the League of Villains. Izuku would head over as he would meet on the battlefield standing next to All Might, standing right in front of All For One. Chills would go down his spine, and you could feel the pressure that surrounds them entirely. All Might tells him that he should leave right now, that this is not his battle, but Izuku tells him that it is always going to be his battle, and it seems like it's time to end it right here and right now, in which Izuku would look toward All For One as All For One would just laugh at them, saying that it seems like All Might has a little student, but it sucks that he's going to have to perish with him and go join his mentor all alike. All Might would feel enraged and charge toward All For One. In a millisecond of reaction time, Izuku would tie All For One in Black Whip, and this would shock All For One, not realizing what the hell just happened and what this kid is capable of doing. He holds All For One there as All Might would land a serious punch to him, like a mean punch, landing it clean to his jaw, sending him flying backwards, cracking his face mask over as well, shattering it entirely. And Shigaraki and many other villains would even try to join in and try to subdue Izuku, or even, defeat him, trying to basically attack Izuku. But Izuku would swoop in a matter of seconds, dodging and speed blitzing all of them, knocking them out entirely, wrapping them all up, and then slinging them off toward the other heroes that are left over. All For One would try to put a portal underneath them, but as he does, he would immediately get punched by All Might, and he would lose concentration, unable to maintain the portal and unable to get the other villains out of there. Izuku would press All For One even further and would attack him as quickly and as frantically as possible, landing blow after blow. And it's obvious that Izuku is basically doing some serious damage. Yes, he's not trying to go for that one punch power, but utilizing 50 to 60% of One For All, and also his striking ability, he's able to target All For One massively, leading to All For One realizing that he doesn't have a choice in a final gambit. He needs to land one blow that knocks them both out of here. But as he tries to store up power and energy, Izuku refuses to relent, as he would immediately go for kind of like this rear naked choke as he kind of gets the back of All For One. And as All For One sees this, he realizes that he needs to send sending tendrils behind him, and he tries to stab Izuku. But as he tries to stab Izuku would push him toward those same tendrils, as it would slightly stab All For One, as he would be extremely injured by this as well. Izuku would land one flush head kick as All For One would stagger, and as he staggers massively, All Might would come out of nowhere, and he would say his United States of Smash and hammer All For One straight to the ground. This would knock out All For One, but All For One would be currently bleeding pretty badly, and everybody would need to get him some serious medical attention, but also get him to prison ASAP. And this would lead to the full capture of the League of Villains as well. Izuku would pull a string on his backpack once again, retracting his suit, and then also just putting him, and it would put his normal clothes on again, which would be, it would just be underneath his super suit, so it would be a pretty basic change. All Might would tell him that he did good, but he should never take risks like that. At the end of the day, he is the future of this all, that he didn't want Izuku to go in here and somehow die, didn't want him to go in here and somehow perish, when all of the future of this hero world relies on him being him. Which Izuku nods and says that he may be important to the future, but they're still living in the present. And he tells All Might that they need him now, And even if he can't be the All Might that he's always been, the one that was in prime form, that the presence of him, and also just All Might being the person he is, well, let's just say if they watch the symbol of peace fall today, there's a good chance that Japan would have crumbled. But there's always repercussions to doing the right thing. And that's exactly what Izuku will feel just for a bit, because he's basically worldwide. Yes, I know the broadcast was only to Japan, but the idea of, well, a 15-year-old kid fighting alongside All Might, maybe evenly with All Might's strength and also his villain, everybody in the world begins to chatter about Izuku Midoriya. People in Japan chant for him to be subsidized as a hero already. People in Japan chant for him to be, idolized. He's the next number one hero. He's going to be the next All Might. This would lead to UA and also many others to actually give him his provisional hero license a lot sooner. Now, and that is excluding the tests. Like, he doesn't need to even test into this, and would also lead to him actually getting calls from other countries. But the main one that he's thinking about, and the main one that really matters in this scenario, is from the United States of America. Because, there's a lot of people out there that really love All Might, and to see that All Might has a quote-unquote successor is something else. And it seems like some people are actually going to head over to UA to speak with Izuku a little bit more about what he can do and about what they can do for him. And after some time would pass, Izuku would continue training, and one day after a training session, he would actually be approached by somebody he didn't know who she was. She would introduce herself as Melissa Shields, and she would basically tell him that she is massively into the support type of hero work, and she does a ton of work in the support game, especially dealing with her father, who is obviously David Shield, which is one of the most famous people in the US, and a good friend of All Might as well. She actually is there to help him out and actually trick up a little bit of his own super suit, and she actually offers him as well a chance to kind of work in the United States a little bit, work on the super suit and continue to evolve it more and more and more. And this is something Izuku would be pretty interested in, because at the end of the day, when he continues to gain more quirks, which is something they have talked about with All Might as well, with the evolution of Black Whip, and then ideally if anything else shows up or starts to show up, that he wants to be prepared with his suits and all of the above. But he is far accelerated in terms of every single, kind of thing that he's gotten. Every single thing that he's basically worked for and continued to kind of develop. Now, Izuku continues to kind of, work hard and elevate as much as possible, working with Melissa Shield, working with Mei Hatsume, and working with these people, and eventually would actually go on to get an offer from Sir Night-Eye's agency. Now, Sir Night-Eye's agency would give him this offer a lot earlier because, he doesn't have to actually do his provisional hero license exam, so he's off working with Sir Night-Eye a lot sooner than later. Now, during this time, he's obviously working with support course heroes and working on different suits, and tried to manufacture kind of his exoskeleton prototype that would allow for others to utilize it, but also so that they can learn fight styles, hero styles, and even more a lot quicker. Now, of course, this could make him a ton of money, but it's not something that Izuku really thinks about to a large degree. He's only thinking about developing the world's technology a little bit more. But on top of that, he wants to be the greatest hero alive, so as long as he continues down that pathway, he definitely will get there. But as he's creating and expanding and making his suits better, he continues to lean more toward the capture side of things, not less durability and strength for now, and more capture utility and stuff that will help him kind of capture anybody or capture people like someone like Shigaraki, who can basically eviscerate you if he touches you at all. He wants to make sure that he has these things placed and fully set up, because they're very important to him to actually develop and eventually kind of utilize these suits to do his best in terms of hero work. But after working with Sir Nida's agency, working with Melissa and stuff like that, one day on a patrol, when they're looking for somebody, actually looking for the leader of the Shiha Zaikai, being that of Overhaul, they would finally come across him. And it would be kind of out of the blue. And the reason why I'm saying this is Izuku actually doesn't have his full-on suit completely up and ready. So when taking this patrol, he actually wasn't ready to take down Overhaul. But he knows in his own head that whatever is happening, whatever needs to happen, will happen. And as he's thinking about these things, and as he's basically debating what he should do, as this with Overhaul, this little girl would run out and would absolutely be terrified. Izuku's just feeling of in his stomach would just turn, and all he could think about is the first day that when he tried to save Bakugo from the sludge villain, and he was told that a true hero does without thinking and would go in no matter what. Well, that's exactly what Izuku's going to do. He powers up as much as possible, immediately dashing towards Overhaul. Izuku would take on Overhaul and just immediately start beating on this guy. He's utilizing something of 60% of One For All, but on top of that, he starts utilizing Black Whip as well. He doesn't actually have his armor or super suit on him to a large degree, or at least the fully powered version of it, so he's not utilizing kind of like a more enhanced version where he can amp up his power even more. But he continues to just overwhelm Overhaul before he can even really react. Mirio would realize that he doesn't have a choice in this now. Yes, he wanted to kind of stall out. He wanted to kind of let Overhaul go for the most part. But he thinks to himself that if he just allows this to keep on going the way it's going, well, it might get really bad and really sticky. So he helps Izuku in this battle, and they begin to actually overwhelm Overhaul. Overhaul tries his best to actually, figure out how the hell he's gonna get out of this, but they overwhelm him so much, and without being able to react to it, he actually would get tangled up in Black Whip. Black Whip would then slam him to the ground, and basically Mirio would go in for the final blow to knock him out. He would punch him straight in his jaw, and as he basically is about to knock out Overhaul, as he's falling to the ground, Overhaul would slam his hand on the ground as spikes would go charging forward toward, Aries' location. The little girl that was just standing nearby, it might get, extremely hurt, but Izuku would jump into action immediately, and he would jump in front of one of the spikes and push Aries away just slightly, as he would, then take the brunt of the spike to the chest. Izuku would feel pain shooting down his body, but he would be gasping for air for the most part, until a bunch of people would come in as an emergency to help get him away. Izuku would be grabbed by these people, and they would try to drag him away, but Aries would stop them, and she would say that she can help, that she can do it, as she would feel this panic and these emotions flow within her body, so it would allow her to kind of focus her power just enough to activate her quirk. And as she does, she heals Izuku and actually reverts him back to when he was before he was, struck by the spike that was coming out of the ground. But as she's doing this, her power begins to fluctuate and begins to lose control. And as her power begins to lose control, it seems as if it's being extremely sporadic, but luckily Shota Aizawa would eventually show up and actually be able to shut her quirk off. But like I said, Izuku didn't have his fully powered and fully set off exoskeleton kind of armor or his super suit, but he did have a version of it. And that version of it was able to kind of resonate with the kind of streaming power that was coming from Eri and stored it in its database. In doing so, when they would all leave, when they would capture Overhaul and eventually invade the Shihazaikai base with actually Izuku's help, when he would go back to the lab and begin working with people like, you know, Melissa or Mei Hatsume, depending on when Melissa would go back to the States, they would be looking and they would see that the exoskeleton suit actually registered something interesting. And it seems like it registered a power that had the ability to rewind someone's body or rewind time itself, in which would blow Izuku's mind, thinking that it seems as if the exoskeleton suit and its adaptability and its just understanding of different quirks is even further along than they thought. But with the data from actual Eri's quirk, this could revolutionize so many different things. And that includes Izuku's utilization of One For All itself, and also any other quirks that seem to arise, at least for the most part. When he puts on this new version of the exoskeleton suit that they work on for quite a bit, and just quite a while in general, Izuku could feel this surge of kind of power. It's not like it's just this overwhelming sense of like strength, but it's like an overwhelming sense of durability. It's as if the exoskeleton suit now has a regenerative property, not only for the armor itself, so when it tears and it breaks and it shatters, it can basically rejuvenate itself. It also adds a sense of durability and regenerative powers for Izuku himself, giving him more stamina, giving him more strength and power and all of the above, and a more advanced super suit that continues to develop to a large degree and continues to expand what they thought was possible in the first place. But Izuku Midoriya is on track to being the greatest hero alive, and it all started with him creating his own super suit. But obviously, we have a little bit more to talk about, and there's some things still to come, because Izuku Midoriya may have this super suit and may have an expanding support army, or kind of this support type of job in the near future, but there's a lot more for him to do to become the #1 hero. And that will be for the finale of What If Deku Made a Super Suit. Izuku Midoriya is about to continue his journey as a hero student. To be honest, this hero journey though is a little bit lackluster. Izuku just continues to train, he works with his classmates, shoot, he even works with other classes, being that of Class 1B. I mean, they even have a bit of a Class 1A versus Class 1B type of training session, or the joint training session overall, and let's just say it is pretty damn beneficial for one Izuku Midoriya, because Izuku, let's just say, continues to evolve even more. And during this battle, while he actually utilizes his extremely advanced exoskeleton suit, he continues to work with his other classmates and just continues to evolve even further, even awakening another quirk, being that of smoke, or smoke screen. Now, Izuku would obviously win against Class 1B, and there would be a lot of kind of downtime / peacetime throughout this period of time. Now, he would kind of work with his suits and continue to evolve his suits, and they even continue to create something that he's really excited about. And it's just going to be a surprise for somebody that is really near and dear to him. Now, during this time, though, he does take trips here and there to different agencies, works with them, and works with people like Endeavor or Sir Night-Eye, and even goes to the United States every so often to actually work with Melissa Shields on some new prototypes that they're currently working on. But like I said, there's a lot of peacetime during this time, and there's a lot of kind of just training and working hard, and exactly what a My Hero Academia is supposed to be. Right, it's supposed to be heavily academia, so they continue to train and do all these things. But eventually, there would be whispers about this thing, this odd-looking thing. It seems that people have found a weird-looking creature that lays dormant within a mountain. This creature is ginormous. I mean, we're talking ginormous. And this creature right here is kind of an odd thing, because they begin to think like, okay, well, what is this thing? I mean, what is it going to do? What does it do? And, well, this thing is known as Gigantomachia. Gigantomachia is a ferocious creature, but he continues to lay dormant for quite a while. Gigantomachia not really able to do much and not really doing anything in general. Izuku just kind of hears about this, but doesn't know like a ton about it. Obviously, he's not really kept in the loop extremely heavily, because he is just a student, to be fair. Like, he's not going to be kept in the loop on every little thing. So he actually doesn't know what's really going on with it, but it does hear some extra things, you know what I mean? Like, here's some things about this or that, and he kind of just thinks to himself, like, this is definitely an odd situation to be in. I mean, very odd to be in. Now, they continue working hard, training and studying. Eventually though, they would actually all be gathered together, because there was basically a hearing on this area or this city that was actually overrun and overthrown, and now is basically or subsequently a place for villains themselves, being that of the Meta Liberation Front. Now, the heroes have debated with dealing with this little city, but now it is time for them to actually deal with it. And Izuku would be a part of the task force. But during this time, they do struggle quite a bit with some of these people that are there, in terms of just how coordinated and how technical they are. But when Izuku starts barreling through and basically knocking out multiples at once, it's obvious how much Izuku has truly been progressing throughout this time, because he begins to use Black Whip to gather them all up, knocking them out, and basically leading him to the final boss, being that of Redestro. And this right here, well, this is a challenging fight, and a fight that Izuku would slightly struggle with, but it is a fight that Izuku is 1000% prepared for. His suit has now allowed him to unlock 100% of One For All, and on top of that, his suit now kind of amplifies the other quirks that he has awakened, being that of Black Whip and Smokescreen. And there's a good chance that if he awakens even more quirks throughout this time, maybe on the off chance that, you know, he would need some help in the future or something like that, he would continue to just evolve more and more. Now, during this time, though, and after they were defeating Redestro, it seemed as if there was a final idea that the villains had themselves, waiting for the opening, waiting for an opportunity. Because when the raid or the siege on this small city or small town would occur, Gigantomachia would awaken fully and charge toward the prison that currently holds some of the most dangerous villains in ever existence, at least in Japan. After the Meta Liberation Front was defeated, they would all think that everything is, you know, all sweet and dandy, but that's until they get calls about Gigantomachia, or this giant monster, about to basically smash into the prison. As he smashes into the prison, though, villains would come pouring out, and Izuku would look to basically try and help as many people as possible. But on top of this, during this time, Izuku would see tons of these high-end Nomus that would begin to barrel out as well. Izuku would begin to take on these high-end Nomus, smashing them and destroying a lot of them very, very quickly. But these are very, very comparable beings. Very comparable beings. And as they look toward the side, they see that All For One and also Shigaraki and some of the stronger villains that they faced, people like Muscular, who is very powerful in his own right, is now standing there ready for another round of fighting against the heroes. The heroes would try and clash with All For One and also Shigaraki and many others, but obviously a lot of the other heroes don't stand much of a chance. So it's all on Izuku Midoriya. It is all on Izuku. Izuku goes to fight All For One and Shigaraki, and he begins to hold them off, but he can't find a perfect opening to just end the battle then and there. It seems like, not that he's struggling, but he's definitely needing a little bit of assistance, and as he thinks about this, an explosion would come barreling in from Katsuki Bakugo, and then Aizawa would come in as well, activating his quirk, basically eliminating the factor of Shigaraki entirely. A 1-versus-1 versus All For One would begin once again, and it seems as if there was some corrupt people within that prison, because All For One actually has a good bit more power than you could possibly imagine. It seems like he's been gaining power, or at least siphoning power to a certain extent, maybe somehow getting more quirks through Nomus or something like that, and it seems as if he is even more prepared than normal for this fight. But Izuku makes it very known that this fight right here is one that will end the reign of All For One as one of the biggest villains ever. Izuku lands a kick flush to his face as an onslaught of punches and kicks would go All For One's way. But of course, there would be more Nomus, high-end Nomus, that would charge toward Izuku, trying to stop him, landing blows on Izuku, but Izuku's able to parry and fight back. It seems like All For One continues to swarm Izuku with abilities or quirks, and also on top of that, continues to swarm Izuku with high-end Nomus. Izuku begins to be on the back foot, but as he is on this back foot, he could sense something from behind him about to punch him in the head. As he does, he dodges and lands a clean blow, knocking one of the people out. Now, during this time, he has a realization that he has gained another quirk, being that of danger sense. It hurts when when he's forced to react to certain things, but it's basically keeping him on his toes and telling him exactly where danger is coming from. Izuku continues to barrel forward, defeating Nomu after Nomu, eventually reaching toward All For One. All For One would send tendrils toward Izuku, scraping and actually hitting one of Izuku's legs. Izuku would stumble a little bit and dodge as much as possible to basically stop All For One. As this is occurring, he would put up smoke screen. It would cover the entirety of the area, and All For One would be unable to see now. Izuku would be hiding within the smoke, and All For One would throw random punches and tendrils at things that he thinks are actually Izuku. First, he hits a Nomu, then he hits a giant pile of rocks, and then he shoots another one, and he hits something. As he hits something, he thinks that he's hit Izuku Midoriya, ending the life of Deku, but as the smoke would clear, well, it's not Deku, and it's not some random arbitrary person. Well, the person standing right there is the one that helped defeat him not too long ago, All Might. But All Might is standing there with armor on him, armor that makes him look like he's in his prime. And All Might stands there and says, "I am here." And he says that, and he tells All For One that this is his fight, a fight between, well, him and All For One. And this one is going to put him away into prison for good. Izuku would stand right next to his mentor and also his teacher, and they would charge forward, both shouting, "United States of Smash." A robot or a robotized type of suit version of All Might, and Izuku, who is amped up on 100% of One For All and has a specialized suit that they've been basically progressing for a long time, now finishing off the final gambit of All For One. But as All For One is out cold and completely defeated, they would hear the rumblings of one more person, that being Gigantomachia, who is still not down for the count, charging toward Izuku, and All Might Immediately, Izuku begins to tie his legs with, of course, Black Whip, and All Might begins to throw a barrage of punches and strikes, trying to land anything that would be critical to this monstrous beast, eventually collapsing it to the ground, and they were able to subdue it, and Izuku would hold the monster still with the help of All Might, holding him still so that Midnight could then overwhelm it with her own pheromones. As she does this, the monster would begin to slowly but surely pass out, unable to actually just withstand the pheromones that are being shot at him, and eventually Gigantomachia would have his head rested on the ground and would be out cold entirely. Izuku and All Might standing above as everybody stands there and looks toward them, as this is truly the passing of a torch. From All Might to Deku, this right here is the next #1 hero, and that is the reality of it all. Izuku would then go on to be one of the greatest heroes ever. Now, he may or may not be looked at as favorably as All Might, but nonetheless, the impact that Izuku would hold, the impact that Izuku would have on this entire world, the entire world of My Hero Academia, would be undoubted. Bringing this technology, bringing super suits and bringing different technologies and expanding technologies to the forefront, and on top of that, protecting those at such a young age, all the way up until he's in his 20s, 30s, 40s, and as he grows old, Izuku continues to protect the younger generation and continues to be a role model for that generation to come. But what is Izuku? What truly becomes of Izuku? The story of My Hero Academia may end here, but Izuku's story in the long run does not. Now, with that said though, that is where we're going to end off this What If. What if Deku made a super suit? Or what if Deku made a super suit earlier on? Now, if you enjoyed, please show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. This is just my take on what I think would happen if Deku decided to make a super suit extremely early on, being that he was a very intelligent kid or person. Now again, a quick little spoiler warning, because this whole series was based around an idea that, well, was a spoiler, but I wanted to say that I do not have an issue necessarily with Izuku losing his powers. My main issue is people not remembering what he did, what he sacrificed, and on top of that, Izuku could have been so much more even after losing his powers, losing his quirk, losing One For All. He could have still been something great, right? We know how smart Izuku is. We know his intelligence. You know, he's not like All Might. He's far from what All Might was. All Might was just kind of like a brute in a way. Like, he was smart, don't get me wrong, but All Might wasn't as smart as Izuku was. Izuku was extremely intelligent, studied quirks all the time, and I feel like having him be kind of downgraded in that way, where they don't remember him as this hero, but he could have been a hero that was, you know, deemed like the greatest hero alive, kind of, and still taught the next generation, which the whole teacher angle I'm not against, but it's really just people not knowing who he truly was and how he basically dug them out of the dark side of Japan and sacrificed everything for them. Now, I know his friends eventually get him a super suit and stuff like that. It is a bit of an awkward ending. It definitely is, but that's kind of my take on the ending of My Hero Academia, which yeah, you got a little extra tidbit out of me. Maybe I'll do a whole video about how I feel about the ending of My Hero Academia if you guys want to see that. But nonetheless, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's all I gotta say. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I hope you enjoyed the series. Later.